They came to America seeking opportunity, yearning for a slice of the American dream. But these weren't ordinary immigrants. They were hardened criminals from Sicily. They were the Mafia, casting a long, dark shadow over their new nation. These ruthless newcomers hijacked the American dream, twisting it into a nightmare of extortion and violence. From New York to Chicago, a new empire rose built on fear and intimidation. This is the story of the Mafia's American takeover, a tale of power, corruption, and betrayal. To understand the Mafia's iron grip on America, we must first journey back to their origins in the sun-drenched hills and valleys of Sicily. Born out of centuries of oppression and instability, the Sicilian Mafia, or Cosa Nostra, emerged as a shadowy force, a parallel government that thrived in the shadows of official authority. Feudal landowners and corrupt officials had long exploited the Sicilian peasantry, leaving them with little choice but to turn to clandestine organizations for protection and justice.
The Mafia, with its strict code of silence and brutal efficiency, filled this void, offering a perverse form of order in a land where chaos reigned. They were the protectors, the judges, and the executioners, all rolled into one. Loyalty was paramount, betrayal unthinkable. Omertà, the Mafia's code of silence, ensured that secrets remained buried, often 6 feet under. This potent cocktail of desperation, opportunity, and ruthlessness brewed in the Sicilian heartland, laying the groundwork for the Mafia's eventual transatlantic leap.
The late 19th century witnessed a mass exodus from Italy as waves of immigrants, many fleeing poverty and seeking new beginnings, crossed the Atlantic to Ellis Island and the promise of America. Among them were members of the Sicilian Mafia, who saw in this new land a golden opportunity to replicate their criminal enterprises on a grander scale. America, with its burgeoning cities, weak law enforcement, and insatiable appetite for vice, proved fertile ground for these cunning transplants.
They arrived in droves, bringing with them their traditions, their grudges, and their ruthless ambition. They settled in tight-knit communities, replicating the social structures that had served them well in Sicily. These neighborhoods became their strongholds, places where they could operate with relative impunity, their activities often hidden in plain sight. The Mafia's American chapter was beginning, and it would soon write its own bloody chapter in the nation's history.
America's law enforcement agencies, ill-prepared and often riddled with corruption themselves, found themselves outmatched by the Mafia's ruthlessness and cunning. The newcomers exploited the system's weaknesses, bribing officials, intimidating witnesses, and using violence to silence their enemies.
The Code of Omertà proved particularly effective, as witnesses, fearing for their lives and those of their families, refused to testify. The Mafia's tentacles reached deep into the heart of America's institutions, compromising politicians, judges, and even law enforcement officers. This widespread corruption created an environment of impunity, allowing the Mafia to operate with relative freedom. Law enforcement agencies struggled to keep pace, their efforts hampered by a lack of resources, a culture of silence, and the sheer audacity of their adversaries.
Section 5. Concrete and corruption. The Mafia's grip on American industries. The Mafia's rise to power wasn't just about violence and intimidation, it was also about money. They understood that real power lay in controlling the levers of the economy, and they wasted no time in sinking their hooks into a wide range of industries.
From labor unions to construction, from gambling to trucking, the Mafia's influence spread like a virus, infecting the very lifeblood of the American economy.
They infiltrated labor unions, using threats and violence to control hiring practices and extort money from businesses. They muscled their way into construction projects, skimming profits and rigging bids. They ran illegal gambling dens and speakeasies, catering to the public's thirst for vice. And they used their control over trucking routes to transport illicit goods and enforce their will.
The American dream, it seemed, was up for grabs, and the Mafia was determined to claim its share, no matter the cost.
Section 6. The Big Apple rots from within, infiltrating New York City. New York City, with its teeming millions, its labyrinthine streets, and its insatiable appetite for vice, proved to be the Mafia's most fertile ground. It was here, in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, that the Mafia's American empire would reach its zenith.
The five families, Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Bonanno, and Colombo, carved up the city like a Thanksgiving turkey, each controlling their own rackets and territories.
They infiltrated every facet of New York life, from the docks to the garment district, from Wall Street to City Hall. They controlled labor unions, construction projects, and garbage collection routes. They ran illegal gambling dens, speakeasies, and prostitution rings, and they used violence and intimidation to silence anyone who dared to cross them.
New York, the city that never sleeps, had become the Mafia's playground, a glittering metropolis built on a foundation of blood and corruption.
Section 7. The Windy City's shadowy masters, Chicago falls under the mob. Chicago, the nation's second largest city, proved equally vulnerable to the Mafia's seductive blend of violence and opportunity. The Chicago outfit, as it was known, established a stranglehold on the city's underworld, controlling gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging operations.
Led by the notorious Al Capone, the outfit became synonymous with the lawlessness and brutality of the Prohibition era.
Capone, a ruthless and charismatic leader, understood the power of public image. He cultivated an air of sophistication, dressing impeccably and presenting himself as a benevolent benefactor to the city's poor. But beneath this veneer of respectability lay a cold-blooded killer, responsible for countless murders and acts of violence.
The streets of Chicago ran red with blood as rival gangs battled for control of the city's lucrative underworld.
Section 8, the Roaring Twenties, when lawlessness fueled fortunes. The 1920s, a decade of unprecedented prosperity and cultural change, also witnessed the rise of organized crime on an unprecedented scale. Speakeasies, illegal drinking dens sprang up like mushrooms after a rainstorm, while bootleggers made fortunes smuggling liquor from Canada and the Caribbean. The Prohibition era, which outlawed the manufacture and sale of alcohol, proved to be a goldmine for the Mafia, who quickly moved to meet the public's insatiable thirst for booze.
The Mafia's control over this lucrative black market fueled their rise to power, providing them with vast sums of money to bribe officials, purchase weapons, and expand their operations.
Violence became commonplace as rival gangs battled for control of bootlegging routes and territories. The streets of America's major cities were transformed into battlegrounds, as the Mafia's thirst for profit left a trail of blood and broken glass in its wake. Section 9, the Five Families, a dynasty of crime in New York. In the annals of American organized crime, no entity looms larger than New York's five families.
These powerful Mafia clans, the Gambinos, Genoveses, Luccheses, Bonannos, and Colombos, ruled the city's underworld with an iron fist, their tentacles reaching into every facet of New York life.
They were the undisputed kings of crime, their names whispered in hushed tones, their power both feared and respected.
Each family controlled their own territory and rackets, operating with a ruthless efficiency that ensured their dominance. They had their fingers in every pie, from labor unions and construction to gambling and prostitution.
They bribed politicians, intimidated witnesses, and eliminated rivals with ruthless efficiency. The five families were more than just criminal organizations. They were dynasties, their power passed down through generations, their influence woven into the very fabric of New York City. Section 10, the mob's shadow, a legacy of violence and intrigue. The Italian Mafia's American takeover left an indelible mark on the nation's history, a chilling reminder of the dark side of the American dream.
Their story is a cautionary tale of power and corruption, of ambition and betrayal.
The Mafia's legacy is etched in blood, in the countless lives lost to their violence.
But their story is also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the tireless efforts of law enforcement officials.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are those who refuse to surrender to fear. The Mafia's reign of terror may have ended, but their story continues to fascinate and horrify. Section 11, from headlines to Hollywood, the Mafia's enduring hold on popular culture. Long after their heyday, the Mafia continues to exert a powerful hold on the American imagination.
From classic films like The Godfather and Goodfellas to hit television shows like The Sopranos, the Mafia story captivates audiences with its blend of violence, intrigue, and dark glamour.
These works offer a glimpse into the inner workings of organized crime, exploring the motivations and consequences of living outside the law.
The Mafia's influence extends beyond the screen to fashion, mannerisms, and language, often romanticized.
This fascination speaks to a deeper allure of power and the seductive nature of violence. It's a dangerous fascination, but one that shows no signs of abating.
The Mafia's story continues to be written in books, on screen, and in our imagination.